This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch Monday, January 28th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, what is next in Washington? Will there be an agreement between the White House and Congress, or are we headed for another partial government shutdown in just a few weeks? And Christian schools under fire. Some are concerned those schools may be the next target of the left, plus an unexpected reason why Muslims in the Middle East are coming to faith in Christ. All those stories and much more ahead on this first edition of CBN NewsWatch. We want to begin with a sigh of relief for government workers across the country after the 35-day government shutdown comes to an end. Now it's back to work for nearly 800,000 federal workers, but for how long? President Donald Trump isn't sure lawmakers will reach an agreement to secure the border by February 15th, telling the Wall Street Journal, quote, "I personally think it's less than 50-50. And if it doesn't happen..."
Is the president really prepared to shut down the government again in 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think he actually is.
The White House says another shutdown isn't the goal, so what is? Washington correspondent Amber Strong has been following this story for us and joins us now from our Washington bureau. So Amber, what will the next 3 weeks look like for lawmakers and the White House?
Hey, Ephraim. So as part of this agreement, 17 lawmakers from the left and the right, Democrats and Republicans from the House and the Senate are going to get together, and they have to come up with something that addresses border security that both sides agree on. Roy Blunt, who is on that committee, said he's reasonably optimistic. Ben Cardin also said he's optimistic. But then Cardin, along with Susan Collins, says, yeah, we're going to probably reach an agreement, but it's probably not going to be something President Trump is on board with.
And if that's the case, so what happens then?
Well, the White House has a couple of options. The president could declare another national a shutdown, like we just saw Mulvaney say in that clip. But that was not a winning issue for the White House. If you look at polling, poll after poll said that this was a lose for the White House, that people viewed that this was the White House's fault. And let's face it, the American people weren't ready to see the Coast Guard or members of the Coast Guard unable to feed their families. So the president could go that route again, but it may not be expedient. The other thing the White House could do is declare a national emergency. This is a bit trickier. Experts say he would then have to invoke U.S. code in order to get the funding. And like all things here in Washington, that's going to end up in a big legal battle with Democrats.
All right. Amber Strong, thank you so much for following this story for us today.
Thank you.
The key reason for the shutdown, of course, was the battle between the president and the Democrats over the president's pledge to get the funding for a border wall with Mexico. As our White House correspondent Ben Kennedy reports, even though the partial government shutdown is over, at least for now, the fight over border security will continue well into the future.
Migrants continue to pour into the U.S. seeking asylum.
We're fighting to, for a better future.
That future begins at a port of entry. Border agents argue they are understaffed and holding areas at capacity, creating long lines and forcing some to wait for weeks to get in. And not everyone comes to the U.S. for a better life. The border has become a pipeline for illegal drugs, gangs, and human traffickers. Which is why then candidate Trump made building a border wall the backbone of his campaign.
I will never, ever back down.
Yes, we do have a crisis at the border.
The border with Mexico is roughly 1,900 miles long, spanning 4 states: California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. Trump recently visited the Lone Star State to see firsthand what he calls a crisis. Aside from a $5 billion wall, Trump wants money for humanitarian aid, additional personnel, and new drug detection technology.
Technology is great. It's always that added situational awareness, but we're always going to need boots on the ground.
Democrats support more agents, but stop short of giving the president a dime for the wall.
It embodies the president's temper tantrum. If you don't do it my way, I'm shutting down the government and hurting lots of people.
Trump did admit that Mexico won't be paying up front for the wall, but maintains the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade deal would cover the funding.
Mexico is paying for the wall indirectly. And when I said Mexico will pay for the wall in front of thousands and thousands of people, obviously they're not going to write a check.
Ben Kennedy, CBN News.
And tonight on CBN's Faith Nation, we're going to have an in-depth look at what the end of the shutdown means for the State of the Union, the battle over the border wall, and those federal workers who went a couple of weeks without a paycheck. That is on Faith Nation. That is tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel. A New York Times reporter's tweet on a viral hashtag called Expose Christian Schools has gone viral itself, creating a firestorm of reaction, with many of the comments supporting the Christian education. Take a look at the original tweet. The Times reporter says he's writing about the hashtag Expose Christian Schools hashtag and said, "I'd like to hear about your experience and its impact on your life." After a number of tweets questioned his apparent slant, he changed his tweet saying, "I'm writing about the response to it and want to hear about all experiences, including positive stories, impact about your time in school." Several thousand people responded. Positive responses toward Christian schools include this one from Stephen Russ, who wrote, "Attended a Christian school, got an incredible education, missed out on the unhealthy effects of the public education system, and I use my education every day. Thankful for my education." But some responses were negative. The hashtag Expose Christian Schools apparently gained traction after a report on Vice President Mike Pence's wife, Karen. She came under fire earlier this month for taking a part-time position as an art teacher at Emmanuel Christian School in Springfield, Virginia. Critics view the school as openly hostile to members of the LGBTQ community because people there support biblical beliefs on sexuality. CBN's Heather Sells spoke about this issue with James Smith, the Vice President of Communications for the Religious Broadcasters Association. Here's a look at that interview.
James, you've been following the mainstream media's focus on Christian education in recent weeks. What do you make of the New York Times reporter changing his tweet, asking people the second time around to report on their positive experiences with Christian education?
Well, Heather, good to be with you. I think it's a little bit of a walk back on his part to attempt to show or give the appearance of more balance when it's very clear from the first tweet the perspective that he was coming from. As your setup piece noted, this is in the context of a controversy just in the last week about Karen Pence. And notice the controversy is not about her teaching at any old Christian school. It's that she's teaching at a Christian school that upholds traditional, historic Christian values and doctrine. She could teach at a liberal Christian school or some other kind of private school, and it wouldn't be controversial. It's only because she is willing to teach at a school that actually upholds traditional evangelical morality that it's a matter of controversy. And that's a sad state of affairs for the New York Times to exploit that to push an agenda to harm evangelical Christians.
Well, it's really interesting, the timing of all of this, because, of course, you know, Christian schools are not anything new. Why do you think now that there's this particular focus on Christian education?
Well, I don't think it's just about Christian education, but it's certainly about that, but it's also about much more. We are in a context now of heightened criticism and attacks, really, on Christians of various denominations. You just, in the last week or so, again, we have an attack on a judicial nominee who, because of his membership in the Knights of Columbus, a Catholic organization that's well known for its work around the United States and around the world, really. And so you have that, and you have these other developments, and certainly the last weekend with the developments related to Covington Catholic School. Certainly part of what fed that narrative, certainly part of what fed that and made that a viral story was the fact that it was a Catholic school. So we're in a context here of a broader cultural conflict, and Christian schools in this case are being used as part of pushing that conflict, I believe.
All right. Well, certainly challenging times to be a believer with this particular context. James Smith with the NRB, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I want to turn overseas now to the Philippines, where at least 20 people are dead after a terrorist attack on a Catholic cathedral during Sunday Mass. 2 suicide bombers reportedly carried out the attack. Filipino President Rodrigo Duterte visited the site today. The attack happened on the southern island of Jolo. The area is a hotbed of radical Islamic activity. For years, the terrorist group Abu Sayyaf, which has aligned itself with ISIS, has carried out bombings, kidnappings, and beheadings. Firefighters in Brazil are searching through treacherous mud to find survivors or bodies after a dam collapsed Friday. At least 58 people are dead and more than 300 people are missing after an iron ore waste from a mine flooded the city of Brumadinho. Israel sent about 130 soldiers from its home front command in a military search and rescue delegation, including engineering expert, doctors, search and rescue teams, and firefighters. National Search and Rescue Unit Commander Golan Vach is leading the team.
We are looking forward to work side by side with the local authorities, units who already work for 3 days. We hope with you, with the Brazilian people, to find and to rescue as much as people as we can.
Despite the small size, Israel is often one of the first countries to offer assistance around the world when disasters strike. A bitterly cold weather system forecasters call a polar vortex is bringing extreme cold across the nation. In Michigan's Upper Peninsula, temperatures dropped to about 0 degrees, with Lake Superior freezing in some places. Forecasters say the winter storm will move into the southeast as well, bringing rain, snow, ice, and plenty of hazardous conditions between Monday and Tuesday. Now let's take a look at what's coming up tonight on the CBN News Channel.
Coming up tonight at 9:30 on Faith versus Culture here on the CBN News Channel, we look at the phrase that you hear often in public now from Christians, which is, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Is this just a harmless phrase that we can say when we're describing our faith walk, or is it a little bit problematic? We're going to dive into that and more on tonight's episode of Faith versus Culture, 9:30 here on the CBN News Channel. We'll see you there.
Well, as Dan said, you can see that on tonight's FaithWire program. It is at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, the unexpected reason behind why some Muslims in the Middle East have come to faith in Christ. We're going to have that story when we come back.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I Wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
The rise and fall of ISIS has had a profound and a long-lasting effect around the globe since it's made its bloody entrance onto the world scene back in 2011. Iraq has been especially hard hit since the terror group took over 1/3 of the country in 2014 and attempted to create its own country through sheer violence and brutality. But it also led to an unexpected outcome, turning some Muslims to Jesus. Chuck Holton brings us the story from Kurdistan.
Iraq will never be the same after ISIS. Sectarian divisions are more deeply felt across the country now than ever before. But there's another, more positive effect ISIS has created. The unspeakable cruelty and outright barbarism displayed by the radical sect has caused some Muslims to actually question the roots of their own faith, and a few have begun seeking something better. Grady Pickett came to northern Iraq with his family 9 years ago.
Since ISIS, there's been a lot of talk of what is a Muslim? Is this Islam? Is this Salafism? What is this? And a lot of people are like, I don't want it anymore. That's what they're saying. They don't know what they are, but they're not that anymore. So they're seeking.
So in the Arab world, Friday is like our Sunday. It's their holy day. So 3 years ago, Grady Pickett and his wife started a church that meets on Friday mornings. And it caters mostly to expats, but they've seen a really exciting trend recently, and that is an increase in the number of former Muslims who are showing up to their service.
There's a lot of what we say MBBs, Muslim background believer, and they all have amazing stories. Many from Iran, many are having dreams and visions of Jesus, and we're just seeing that more and more now. But there's an openness, especially with the young people and social media. They have windows to the whole world, and they're willing to hear something new.
Mustafa Habat was once a radical jihadist himself.
I was a radical Muslim. I'm a Salafian Muslim, very, very radical. I'm not fighting, and just when you are a Muslim, you are a human, and others isn't a human.
But the atrocities being committed by the Islamic State made him rethink his devotion to Islam.
I became an atheist because I don't know who's God, who's the messenger. This word is in the Quran that's God said, when Muslims say God taught to us. It's changed myself. It's important to me. But when I'm atheist, my life is terrible. I was alone. In this world full of crime, full of bad things, I'm alone.
But then, Mustafa's professor at the university introduced him to Jesus.
I went to university. I see my teacher, Tracy, and she gives me some facts about the Bible, and I found the love.
I'm Tracy Marie Fenton. I'm from England. I've lived in Kurdistan for 2 years. I work for the University of Kurdistan, Howler. I've created the first ever holistic arts centre here in the Middle East.
Tracy invited Mustafa to visit her church.
The people that come to this church are from every single corner of the world. It's the Great Commission. It really, truly is. It's the living, breathing Great Commission.
And there, Mustafa found a place he could call home.
I love God, I love Jesus, and this atmosphere, this church helped me to find myself, to know who I am. I found my beautiful God.
In Kurdistan, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
We're shifting gears with 2019 well underway. Many people are trying to keep their New Year's resolutions, lose weight, and save money. We're going to show you how you can do both at the same time right after this.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Welcome back. Two of the most popular New Year's resolutions are to save money and to eat healthier. Most people think you have to pick one or the other because eating healthy can be expensive. Lori Johnson takes us to a grocery boot camp to show you how you can switch to a healthier diet without breaking the bank.
Just because some unhealthy foods like processed macaroni and cheese are cheap and some healthy foods like wild-caught salmon are expensive, don't think for a minute you have to spend a lot to eat healthy. Tiffany Terzak is living proof. She feeds her Atlanta family of 4 super healthy food for, get this, only $330 a month.
We eat real food, so food that comes from the ground, animals that eat plants from the ground. We hardly eat anything processed, and by processed, I'm referring to boxes, just add water type of things. We don't eat that.
Tiffany's online grocery budget boot camp is so popular, there's a waiting list. Probably because she saves her students an average of $2,400 a year.
I believe God has given me the gift of teaching people how to eat real food on a budget. Everything involved in that arena comes easy to me, and I know it's hard for other people.
Tiffany took me to her local grocery and shared her top tips, like stocking up on sale items.
What really caught my eye is this, and these are drumsticks for $1.79 per pound, marked down from $2.49, and these are free-range organic as well. And there are several packages up here. There's at least, 4, 5, 6 packages of them. So when someone is concerned about eating healthier food, trying to buy organics, but they always say that organic costs so much, if you just keep your eyes open, you can find really great deals on organic food at the grocery store.
So you would buy all of those packages and put them in the freezer?
I would, because the sales cycle for grocery stores is 6 to 8 weeks. And now I don't have to buy it at full price in, say, 2 weeks from now. We're good to go for several weeks.
When you hit the produce department, comparison shop. You'll be surprised some organics, like carrots, are usually pretty cheap.
So it's a 30-cent difference between conventional and organic, which is really great if you're trying to buy better quality food, but trying to keep it within the budget.
Don't pay more for chopped or washed produce. Save big money by doing it yourself. Seasonal produce is usually less expensive and abundant. And check out the bargain bin.
Some of the stores will include organic produce in this marked down section, and it doesn't change the price. It's still 99 cents for that bag, which can really save you a lot of money.
Frozen produce can be just as healthy as fresh and often a lot cheaper. Wild canned fish is way cheaper than fresh or frozen, and it's just as healthy. Watch out for the specialty cheese section. The blue cheese here is twice the price of what's in the dairy section. Steer clear of bottled and canned drinks like juices and sodas. Stick with good old tap water instead. Also, avoid packaged snack foods like cereal bars. It's much healthier and cheaper to make them from scratch from organic whole oats.
If you are intentional with what you cook from scratch, and you cook the things that will have the biggest impact on your budget, then you can actually make cooking from scratch work in your favor.
Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Up next, a Georgia pastor relies on his faith after a horrible tragedy. Stay with us for this story. We'll be right back.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
A Georgia pastor says his faith is sustaining him after both of his teenage sons were killed in a car accident. Pastor Kevin Royston of Outreach Church in Noonan watched his sons leave the church building a week ago Sunday. The Georgia State Patrol said his son Khalil went around a curve at a high rate of speed, went airborne, and hit 2 trees. His brother Joshua was pronounced dead at the scene. The pastor did ask for prayers for Khalil, but he died last Tuesday. Pastor Royston wrote on his Facebook, the church's Facebook page, sometimes life will throw us blows that seem unbearable, but there are the times where we must make ourselves stay connected to the only source of life, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now, you can find more of what the pastor wrote at CBNNews.com. And with that, I want to leave you with this Monday motivation. It's a thought about what you do during trying times. The trials and problems of life are platforms for God to honor and showcase His promises. He promises us joy for our sorrow, hope for your tomorrow, and strength for everything you go through. God's plan for your life is always good, and He will cause all things to work together for your good. With that, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can always find more of the issues you care most about at CBNNews.com. You can also watch CBN News programs anytime on the CBN News channel. Plus, we'd like to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, on Twitter, as well as Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Goodbye and God bless. Make it a marvelous Monday.